What I find interesting is this topic, the psychology of a hero. Wow, that's not an easy topic to talk about. It's pretty much a challenge. And I have an idea that there is no shortage of strong opinion amongst people in this room about what it takes to be a hero. You all have probably some example in your life of somebody who has been a hero. And it's interesting because when you get people into a room and you talk about heroes, man, there is definitely very strong reactions to what it takes to be one. So where do I begin? It's a tough topic, and so where I thought I'd begin is I thought I would look at my experiences with young men who come into the Air Force to be something significant. They come into the Air Force to be something remarkable, and watching them from day one go all the way through training and into the operational field to do things that are quite remarkable, to demonstrate acts of courage that I think all of us would consider quite extraordinary. But with that being said, not everybody makes it. And so what I'm going to do is I'll share with you the research and my observations that I've conducted over the last, I'd say, 10 years. And hopefully you'll have something meaningful to take home with you. Now, the folks that I'm talking about are battlefield airmen. They are some of the most elite special duty operators in the military. They are quite remarkable. Now, when I think about the lab, a lot of times with battlefield airmen, what we think about is the technology that we put on them so they can efficiently and effectively carry out their duties. And yes, technology certainly helps us win wars, but at the center of it all is the airmen. See, regardless of the technology that we equip somebody with, it's the character traits of that airman and how well they can adapt to adversity and, of course, the unpredictability. And so what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about those particular traits. First of all, many try out, many compete. What you may not know is that most of these individuals that try out for battlefield airmen or special operation duty positions look like they stepped out of GQ magazine. They clearly are chiseled, they're buff, and they are extremely fit. They represent some of America's fittest individuals. What you may also not know is that they're very smart. Even though most of them are high school graduates, most of them have IQs of about 120. That's in the 90th percentile. That means they're just as smart as physicians, surgeons, and lab scientists in AFRL. So there's a lot of brawn and there's a lot of brain behind these individuals that go out and compete. Unfortunately, not everybody makes it. And in many situations, we have a 90% attrition rate. So imagine this. We're already working with the brightest and the strongest young adults in America, and yet we have a 90% attrition rate. And what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things. Perhaps we're not necessarily recruiting well, or perhaps it's the demands. Yes, the demands are great. And because these individuals are as elite as they are already when they come into the Air Force, they're not short on trophies. Typically in their background, their walls are lined with trophies. So in terms of dealing with adversity, this isn't something new for them. But the demands that we throw at them are things that they've never experienced before. And I'll share with you what some of those things are and what separates those who fail from those who succeed. The other piece of this is that the costs are very high. See, we're expanding in special operations. Yes, we're about air superiority and developing aircraft and putting men in those aircraft and women in those aircraft. But the other piece of this is we're expanding in special operations at a rapid rate. Now, what you, I think, might find interesting is that the Air Force spent close to $40 million over a 5-year period to recruit close to 2,000 of America's finest, strongest, and brightest candidates. And out of that, we only got about 200. That's a lot of money. Now, if we were to fast forward things 5 years from now, we have to be able to do things more effectively, cost efficient, and expeditiously. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to keep up to demand and meet our mission requirements. So with that being said, what makes a hero? And that's where we started to get engaged in our research to figure that out. They're already bright, they're already strong. So there's got to be something else to it. So what we did was we merged a lot of psychological testing, a lot of evaluations, a lot of observations both in the field and in training, and we came up with what we would consider a pattern of behavior that is predictive of success. Now, I'm not going to share with you all of those traits, but I have cherry-picked a handful, and I'll tell you at the end why I've cherry-picked these traits. The first one is passion. Everybody in this room is going to think, oh yeah, that's obvious. It's the desire to succeed. Well, everybody who comes out for special operations has a desire to succeed. But interestingly enough, about those who succeed, it's a bit more. It's about purpose. It's about meaning. It's about drive to be something significant. That's what delineates those who just simply want to achieve from those who really do succeed. Now, here's an example of this. So, as you know, we push pararescue men to the point of exhaustion. We have a number of physical activities where we push them so hard that they feel like they've got nothing left to give. You take that candidate out who says, I've got nothing more. I am done. I cannot do a single sit-up. You take a heavy block, you put it on his chest, and you say, okay, read those words. And I'm sure all of you could read those words. Those words say that others may live. That's their motto. Those individuals that have internalized that sense of purpose well beyond something where they look for a recognition or a trophy, but they have internalized it to say, this is why I am here, man, they bang out 10, 15, 20 more sit-ups. They reach inside and they are able to achieve something they thought was impossible when they have a sense of purpose behind that passion. The other piece to this is assertiveness. Okay, so everybody might say that's obvious. It's your capability to speak up in a group, speak for oneself. Well, yeah, that's right. But the assertiveness here that we're talking about goes a little bit deeper. It's not your Webster Dictionary version of assertiveness. The assertiveness here actually has two specific qualities to it. The first one being, hey, I recognize and need feedback. So it's the assertiveness of being straightforward and transparent with one's capabilities. That means not overstating what you have or what your traits are, but simply being honest, being straightforward with yourself as well as straightforward with others. And the other piece that we found that delineated those who succeed were those training candidates that raised their hand and said, yes, I need help. I can't do this on my own. I need help. I am willing to recognize my weaknesses. Yes, I adopt my strengths, but I know that in order to succeed, I have to overcome my weaknesses, and I seek feedback. Now, what's interesting behind that is that assertiveness is very much linked to humility. I didn't combine those two initially, but then when we started looking at the testing and the observations, we realized that they were a bit related. Okay, so a lot of people assume that in order to be special operations, you're not short on pride, and that's true. But there's also a strong sense of humility behind this. And what I mean by that is you peel back the layers and what you find are individuals who do two things. One, they say, my accomplishments are not the single effects of one individual, but a team. And you look at those who succeed, especially in the training environment, and every time you ask them, you say, hey, what was it that got you through? They'll cite a number of people that were in their class or who helped them along the way. That's a big deal. And the other piece to this is being team-oriented, recognizing consistently that in order to achieve the remarkable or the impossible, you can't do it alone. So here's an example. So yes, we like to exhaust people with a variety of different exercises. We'll put a log in front of them and say, your mission is to hold this thing up as long as you possibly can. Now, if you're not short on humility, the thing that you're going to want to do is show everybody around you just how strong you are. You're going to want to hold that log by yourself. And you, if you are short on humility, will watch your teammates drop off. And when that happens, the log comes down on you and it crushes everybody. However, if you have humility and recognize this isn't about being able to prove how strong I am, but how well I operate in a team, you realize that actually when you start communicating, the people on the ends can hold it up while the people in the middle rest, and they switch back and forth. Any single candidate can hold this thing up for a brief moment of time before everybody's crushed. But when you operate as a team, you can hold this thing up all day long. Whether you're in the mud, water, people screaming at you, spraying water in your face and other things, you're going to do it, and it's pretty remarkable. So humility is a clear trait that's required in order to succeed. How about resourcefulness? I think that's something that we're educated all the time about. Do what you got with what you have with the limited resources you've been given. But this is a lot deeper. The resourcefulness of those who succeed versus fail is a mindset. It's a mindset of what is called thankfulness. And I'll give you an example about what I mean. Those who succeed look at what they have and they go, yes, this is what I have, but I am so thankful that I have it. Whereas those who fail are the ones that look at it and they complain about what they don't have, or perhaps the limitations of what they do have. So let me give you an example. We take a group of candidates and we push them and we put them to a 16-foot wall. In front of them, there are 2 cinder blocks, a 2x4 that's about 4 feet long, and a 4-foot rope. And you say, your instructions are, you've got to get past that wall. Now, the people who succeed look at that and they say, that is awesome, look what I have. If I stack this just the right way, instead of having to get over a 16-foot wall, perhaps I'm just having to get over an 8-foot wall. Whereas those who fail, yeah, they're smart, they're really bright, but they'll look at that and they'll spend an inordinate amount of time complaining, going, is this a mind game? Are they trying to trick us here? Whereas those who succeed are already moving forward. Sometimes you get a really bright one who tries to make the human slingshot with what they've got there. Or in other cases, you get the really bright one who notices the crowbar that's 10 feet away, buried by some leaves. Walks over, grabs the crowbar, looks at the culvert in the pipe that runs underneath the wall, pulls off the grate, and says to his buddies, if we want to get past that wall, let's just go underneath it. So resourcefulness, creativity, and a sense of thankfulness for what one has and not what one doesn't have is absolutely essential to success. Okay, how about this one? Impulse and fear control. A lot of people assume that the hero has no fear, right? You're going to go into battle, you're going to have bullets flying at you, and therefore, in order to succeed and think rationally, you have no fear. Well, that's actually not true. When we do the subjective ratings on those who fail, as well as those who pass, the subjective ratings of fear are the same. They are both afraid. But it's not necessarily the absence of fear, it's how well you can control that fear versus fear controlling you. See, when we're put underneath adversity and exhaustion and limited resources and what we think is impossible, fear and anxiety can set in, and that's okay. It's just a matter of how well you can control that. So let me give you an example of fear control. Here's an exercise that we put PJs through that would kill many of the people in this room. I'll take your hands, cuff it behind your back, and then I'll cuff your ankles, and I'll push you into an 8 to 10-foot pool of water. Now, interestingly enough, the strategies of survival are quite simple. Allow yourself to go all the way down to the bottom, do a dolphin kick up, your head's going to break the surface for about 1 to 2 seconds, take a breath, and repeat as you go down. Do that for several minutes, an extended period of time. That's fear control. That's impulse control. In order to think rationally, objectively, in life-saving circumstances, you have to be able to control that. Now, if you look at the lower bottom of the screen, you might see something quite remarkable. There's an individual who is laying on his side at the bottom of the pool. He lost his mask. Now he's picking the mask up with his teeth. When he surfaces, he'll fling it to the side and repeat. It's quite remarkable. Fear control. Optimism, that's the next one. I think everybody's got their own definition of optimism, but no, it's not necessarily the typical power of positive thinking. Yes, positive thinking is absolutely essential, but what makes the difference between success and failure is a sense of perspective. See, every one of these training candidates, as well as even in an operational setting, will experience failure. They will experience defeat. But optimism is maintaining perspective. That is, what can I learn from this? What can I do in order to grow from the failure and the defeat that I've experienced? And from that, one realizes, wow, I learn more from failure at times than I do success. So it's maintaining that perspective. Okay? So the next one is tenacity. Now let me just remind you again that this is a remarkable group of young adults that come out for this. They are some of America's most elite and smartest candidates that we have to offer. And so when you look at their potential, when you see them get off the bus, every one of them has the potential to succeed. But sometimes the only thing that determines the difference between those who succeed versus those who fail is simply tenacity. The individual that you're looking at is not the smartest, nor physically capable individual in this group. But for some reason, he's further ahead than everybody else. And it's the desire to finish. Regardless of the obstacles, regardless of the issues or problems that one is faced with, one says, I will not give up, I will finish. So a key trait. Now, let me finish up with this self-sacrifice, this last one. A lot of people assume, yes, I know what that's about, and that's part of one of our core values, service before self. Yes, absolutely, and it's essential. But when you peel back the layers and you look at and you ask those individuals who succeeded, what defines them for self-sacrifice, they'll tell you a few things. And it really boils down to a simple phrase, and that is, regardless, it is more important in terms of what one does with one's life and how one lives one's life and the mark that they make versus how long one lives. So that's one of these perspectives that gets back to a sense of purpose, trying to be remarkable and significant. We see this borne out in the battlefield all the time with those individuals who are willing to run toward a fight rather than away from a fight in order so that others may live. So, thank you.